Welcome back, City Heads. Today we are in Camden, North London, taking a look at the incredible plans for Camden Film Quarter. It's a proposed new neighbourhood located between Kentish Town and Camden on what is currently a 22-acre industrial estate. There's going to be film and television studios, 2 new schools specialising in TV and production, over 1,000 new homes with 50% of those classed as affordable, creative workspaces and new public green spaces that will connect into surrounding areas. Now the site is currently used as like an industrial estate, a depot and a recycling centre, but it's located really centrally within London and has loads of decent public transport connections nearby, so it's currently quite underutilised given its central location. And so the plan promises to totally redevelop this site, create a new sort of hub for the local area, and crucially the developers have estimated that it could bring up to 2,500 new jobs and over £100 million per year in additional tax revenue for Camden Council. And so this is what the proposal looks like. It's sort of a master plan that they've put forward. It's going to be a huge increase in density, a lot more taller buildings going on there, utilising that site's central location and a nice public green space sort of weaving in between the buildings there. So there's a few different buildings proposed and we'll just kind of go through each one individually. And I want to start on the Film Quarter building itself, which is sort of the hub of the plan and the reason that this whole campus is being built in the first place. So this is going to be Inner London's first purpose-built film studio campus with sound stages, post-production suites and creative offices. They're saying it'll be an open campus with cafes, galleries and even a rooftop garden. Developers in London are obsessed with creating rooftop gardens at the moment, aren't they? But there'll also be sound stages with workshops for costumes, makeup, post-production and all that sort of stuff. Crucially, bringing all of this sort of stuff into central London. A lot of London's film studios currently are located way out of the city, not even in sort of greater London. They're all in like Buckinghamshire, off towards like Berkshire and places like that. They're way out in the home counties. So this proposes to actually bring film production right into the heart of London, and that'll make it a lot more accessible for the city's creative workforce to actually access it. A major problem in London's creative industries at the moment is that while a lot of the creative workforce live in London itself, a lot of these film studios are located further out, and if you don't have a car, it can be quite difficult to access those places. It can be quite difficult to get jobs in those places. And so bringing some of those sectors and some of those companies into the heart of the city will be better for the city's creative industries more generally. It'll allow people to more easily access those jobs, which should help propel London's film and TV production sectors into the future. And unlike a lot of those isolated studio campuses on the outskirts of the city, this will be located in a walkable, mixed-use neighbourhood with loads of studios and creative businesses, leisure and homes all on one site. And it's again just about locating those creative industries closer to the people who actually work in creative industries. And there's a whole thing called agglomeration, which is essentially this idea that industries thrive when they're not only near the people that actually work in those industries, but also actually closer to other companies in the same industry. They all sort of thrive off each other because they're located within close proximity to each other. And maybe that's the philosophy behind this. Bring all of this into the heart of creative London. Obviously Camden is a really creative area. This seems like a pretty logical place for this sort of thing to be. Putting it in that area, allowing it to feed off the surrounding creative energy will almost certainly help to grow London's creative TV and production industry even further. And yeah, architecturally it's very distinct. This is quite a unique facade going on here. You see those like triangular bits. That's all brick, by the way, so you can see in this image here, those triangular elements are definitely created with brick. It's a super distinct building. As it hits the ground, you have these arches again. I love arches. That's awesome. Arches are definitely coming back. I love to see it. It's very like, I don't know, would you call it like modernism, neo-modernism? I'm not sure. It's really, I've not really ever seen anything like this before. If I say it looks like a beehive, does that make sense? I'm gonna look at some pictures of a beehive and see if that makes sense. But to me, it looks like this, almost like a hive. Oh, maybe that's what they were going for, to be honest. I don't know if that's like, there's like a purposeful metaphor. It's like a hive of TV production. I don't know. Do architects do metaphors? It looks very unique. It looks very distinct. I quite like it. And then this huge glass facade, but it's not just like a flat glass facade. They've kind of continued that triangular pattern that they have with the brickwork, which again just gives it a little bit more character and a little bit more of a focal point for this building. It looks really good. And so now we're going to move on to the school building, which is that building there to the south of the public realm. And this building will house not one but 2 film schools, the National Film and Television School and the London Screen Academy. Both of those provide film and related training for 16 to 19-year-olds. And the idea of having these two schools on the same site as the Film Quarter itself is to obviously give students a very clear pathway from classroom to career. And that is again going to feed into that whole agglomeration thing I was talking about earlier. Having the existing workforce, the future workforce, and all of these companies on the same site is obviously going to help with the productivity of London's film sector. Now, according to the architects, the choice of materials for the buildings reflects local context. So they've used glazed brickwork for the facade, which according to the architects is a direct reference to Kentish Town tube station, which is nearby. That's one of those iconic ox blood tube stations that you often see around London. I'll put a picture on the screen. Very cool. And here's a better look at the elevation of that building. So you can see that glazed brickwork very, very nicely. It's a lovely colour, and that mix of glass and brick really looks good as well. And the facade almost kind of looks like the building is like leaning away. It kind of does this like leaning effect thing. That's just, I guess it just adds a bit of visual interest to the building really. Both of those buildings look really nice and really unique. I've not really seen anything like this building or the Film Quarter building before, so it's good to see we're getting new unique architecture coming in for this site. Moving on to look at what they're calling the energy centre. This is, it looks a bit like a greenhouse, but it's apparently an energy hub which will generate low carbon energy and electricity for the sort of the whole neighbourhood. And it echoes the forms of kind of historic engine sheds and railway viaducts. I can very much see how the design has been influenced by railway viaducts. It very much looks like that. Love that brickwork there and the arches. And yeah, it just looks like a conservatory has been lopped on top. And it really does look like a greenhouse. They've like got greenery inside there. So I don't know what type of energy they're generating with that, but this is labelled as the energy centre. And there is a bit more detail on the brickwork itself that they're proposing. So they're going again for this like, yeah, sort of triangular pattern with the brickwork, which looks really cool. And you can do a lot, you can add a lot of visual interest just by using bricks. I think for too long we've almost kind of overthought how to add visual interest to buildings, and when really what architects seem to be doing nowadays is pulling that back a little bit and trying to create visual interest through these like subtle cues and using very, very simple materials like brick, but doing it in a pattern like this, which does just add quite a lot of interest to the facade of a building without making it all messy and confusing and just a bit tacky really. Now, as with a lot of these plans going on in London at the moment, greenery and public realm and trees and planting have been made a very, very central feature. So there'll be this network of parks and plazas and tree-lined streets. They'll use the public realm again for like public art and events and outdoor screening, which will make this master plan, the Camden Film Quarter, a year-round cultural destination. And embedded within the green space, there's going to be native planting and pollinator-friendly landscapes, which should contribute to ecological enhancement and attract loads of new bees and wildlife and all that sort of stuff. And because the site is so centrally located and because it's near to tube and overground and bus services, there's going to be no parking provision whatsoever on the site, and that has meant that they've been able to relieve a lot of space for more greenery, more parks. So this plan here shows the character areas for the different public realm elements that they're creating. So you start off with that bit around the energy centre there. That is in future going to provide a quicker pedestrian link up to Hampstead Heath, going up to the north. You then have all the way along the railway viaduct there. They're creating what is going to be called a maker's lane. So essentially converting a lot of those railway arches into space for new businesses and restaurants and bars and stuff like that. There's also going to be community gardens for residents. And then running all the way through the middle of the site there is this big long park that will essentially connect the whole area. And this is where they're planning to do events and outdoor screenings. This is where the sort of the hub of the whole community will be. And there's also going to be a new play space for kids as well. So as part of the London plan, all new developments have to offer sufficient, accessible and well-designed play for children of all ages. So all new residential developments should contain 10 to 15 square meters of play space per child. So that means these like climbing frames and stuff like that. So they're essentially proposing 3 different areas of play space for kids. One situated up at the north there, and then 2 down in the south of the site. And there'll be a mix of doorstep play, so where kids can sort of play right outside their doorstep on safe streets that are not open to cars, so there's not going to be cars going through or anything like that. Kids can just play out in the street right outside their home. And then a mixture of local play for kids aged 5 to 11 and youth play for kids aged 12 and above. Here's a picture showing off some of the public realms. So you have this like podium. There's the Film Quarter building. You can see the sort of the triangular element there. So looking at the master plan again, we're now going to move on to Station House, which is one of the residential buildings that they're proposing on the site. You might remember I mentioned that the site is currently used as a recycling centre, so they won't be getting rid of the recycling centre. They'll be building a new one as part of this development, and this is where it'll be. So there'll be 28 homes on the upper floors, but then on the ground floor there's going to be a new recycling centre, which is definitely bringing a new definition of mixed use to the site. But these sorts of uses are still important. You can't just have a city that's full of apartments and offices and bars and restaurants. You need all of the other ancillary stuff which keeps the city going, keeps the city moving. And while obviously we do need to make the best use of centrally located sites, we do still need things like recycling centres to be situated in inner London. And this seems like a pretty good way of integrating what would typically be quite a low density use in a recycling centre into a high density neighbourhood. They're doing it as well with like supermarkets. So there's a lot of, obviously supermarkets take up a huge amount of room, so they're not typically found in inner city areas. But what they seem to be doing now throughout London is developing above supermarkets. So you have this huge supermarket on the ground floor and then loads of apartments above, and that's essentially a way of bringing a big supermarket into the centre of the city so that city residents can also go to the supermarket even if they don't have a car, and obviously you get the apartments above, which makes the development viable in the first place. So this seems to be along the same philosophy as that, providing a recycling centre on the ground floor and apartments above. And it's, again, a really good looking building. That brickwork looks quite similar to the school building that we looked at earlier, with those sort of like almost like arched forms in the brick. That greenery on the balconies there might be a bit of artistic license. That'll obviously maybe depend on the residents, whether they decide to droop greenery from the balconies or not. I love the balconies. They look absolutely enormous, and yeah, it's just generally a really good looking building. That greenery and red brick I think sits really well together, so that obviously looks really good. And again, those arches on the ground floor there, mwah, amazing. So there'll be 28 homes in this building as well, and throughout the site they're doing 50% affordable housing provision. I don't know how that'll apply to individual buildings like this one, but in theory that could mean that there'll be 14 affordable homes in this building as well. There's not been much detail at this stage on how those affordable homes will be distributed. There's lots of different types of affordable homes, like ranging from like 80% of market rent to like social homes and like local authority housing rate homes. So I haven't seen the breakdown on how that will look, but yeah, they're saying 50% of the homes provided on this site will be affordable. And then shifting over to the left side of the master plan, we have another residential development. So this one will provide 245 homes, and they will all be centred around a new public garden which will be designed for community living. And this looks like a more typical New London vernacular apartment building, but again, I loved the curved corners, I loved the curved balconies there, and again, I just love the use of brick and still using those arches on the ground floor, opening up onto this lovely bit of public realm right in front of it. And that is again part of this like doorstep play that they're providing for kids. And then moving on to the north of the site, again, this is the biggest residential development proposed on the site. So there's going to be 240 homes here. Again, 50% of those homes will be classed as affordable, and it'll provide another residential community with lots of green spaces. And because they're quite tall buildings, I think this one is about 20 stories in total, you'll be getting really, really good views across the city from this building. And with that facade, they seem to be echoing modernism again. So there's a centre point in the centre of town, has this very, very similar facade on the front of it. So they do seem to be echoing modernism a little bit. And then on the right, there's another red brick building, lovely curved balconies, lovely form to it. Reminds me a little bit of a building in Elephant and Castle, which if you've seen my Elephant and Castle video, that is a building that I really like. I think it's probably my favourite modern building in London. And that building, that red brick, does seem to echo it a little bit with the form and the balconies and just the way that it's been designed. So I'm really into that. This shows a little bit more detail on the facades of those buildings. So you can see the one on the left there is that red brick building that I showed you a second ago. The one in the middle is the modernist building, the sort of neo-modernist building that they're proposing. And then I think on the right there, that just shows those like balconies. I don't know how big those balconies are proposed to be. Obviously it being a sort of irregular triangular shape does restrict the size of the balcony a little bit, but they look like they'd still be big enough to sort of sit on, so that should be nice. Even though that taller building on the left echoes modernism, it is not going to be like exposed concrete or anything like that. They're still using brick on that facade, so it won't look like your typical modernist building with like exposed concrete and stuff like that. It will still be brick, but I think it still, from a distance at least, does echo that style a little bit. And now there's a lot of development happening in Camden at the moment. It's a really booming part of the city. It is very centrally located. It's got really good transport connections, and so this is another development that is currently under construction nearby called Camden Goodyard. And we were saying earlier about how a lot of supermarkets are doing a supermarket on the ground floor now and apartments above, and there it is in Camden Goodyard. You can see there's a Morrison's there on the ground floor, and then above that they've built all of these apartments. And as I said, that's just a good way of getting what would traditionally be quite a low density, low intensive use into the centre of a city in a high density form. So obviously it probably wouldn't have been financially viable for Morrison's to have built a big shed in the middle of Camden as a supermarket, but they put a 10-storey apartment block above it, and suddenly it becomes financially viable. And it means that the people of Camden, this very inner city area, get a massive suburban style supermarket on their doorstep. So it's good for everyone, and that is a good example of it. And I think with the Camden Goodyard building there, they've also got what looks like a greenhouse kind of allotment thing on the roof there, and they've done it at Camden Film Quarter as well, but I really like this new trend of putting like big text on the roof of buildings. I think it looks really good, and it sort of echoes that like 1920s New York a little bit, which I think is why I'm so into it. But yeah, it's really cool. And again, on the ground floor there, this lovely, I think it's London brick, that sort of beige brick, I'm pretty sure that's London brick, with these arches on across 2 stories, and then the Morrison's on the ground floor there. That is going to be like probably one of the best looking Morrison's in the country. And in the corner there, you can see there's another play area for kids, just a cute little slide. They've used the terrain to provide this kids play area. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this whistle-stop tour of a bunch of developments in Camden. I really like the proposal for the Film Quarter, and I really like what is currently under construction at Camden Goodyard as well. It's quite interesting that these new developments really are focusing on bringing these traditionally quite suburban, low-density uses into the heart of our cities. So we have the film studios at Camden Film Quarter, bringing all of that film and production into the heart of London, putting it closer to the creatives and the people that work in these sectors, making it more accessible for those people, and ultimately allowing London's film and television sector to thrive even more. Bringing a massive supermarket into the heart of Camden, that's going to be really good as well. It's really cleverly integrated into the ground floor of that apartment building. And of course, a recycling centre, because although a recycling centre in the traditional sense isn't appropriate for such a high density, well-connected area such as Camden, but when you integrate it again onto the ground floor of an apartment building there, that's a really clever way of bringing this sort of thing into the centre of the city, because we do still need these things. We just need to cleverly think about how to integrate them into such high value, high density areas. So yeah, Happy New Year, by the way. I'm really excited for 2026. I have a load of new video ideas, which I'm really excited to share with you over the course of the next year. If you like videos like this, I've set up a Patreon and a Buy Me a Coffee. There's a link in the description to those if you want to go and support me. I'd really appreciate that. Comment below what you thought of this development and Camden Goodyard. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts, and also let me know in the comments which developments you think I should check out next. I've got a massive list of developments that I want to do videos like this for all around the country, and a lot of them have come from you guys in the comments. I just have to get around to doing it, but please do add to my list below and give me a massive load of work to do in 2026. Thanks for watching, see you in the next video.